All right, Stokastic, here we go with your old pal Emac coming to you on a Sunday night here after a 1-week hiatus out there in wine country where I got to be the designated driver, Greg. It was so much fun for the other people with us because I don't like wine. My wife was hoping this trip would convince me to like wine. No, not so much. So, there we are. There we are. How are you?
Good. I was not in wine country last weekend. I was right here doing the show with Travis Mangone. And in general, I'm pretty happy right now just because I had a lot of Brock Bowers in DFS. And on top of it also, Emac, I bet the Raiders plus with the points today. So in overtime, they ended up covering at the end. They went for the 2-point conversion and didn't win outright, but all good because they covered the spread. So between Bowers scoring his third touchdown of the game in the late stages and the Raiders covering, it was a good end to the slate for me. It wasn't massively profitable in DFS, but I was slightly profitable, which is always nice for the purpose of tournaments. So I'm pretty good. I'm in good spirits right now.
All right. Well, I'm happy to hear that. I actually I took most of last week off. Played a Sunday night and Monday night football. Didn't do main slate, but I was back in the cash game streets today. Team free money finally had a positive week here on DraftKings. Oh, goodness gracious. Good times. Good times. But yeah, it was the sports equinox is now over. The Toronto Blue Jays ended up losing in extra innings last night to the Los Angeles Dodgers. So we are down to just every other sport. And I think this was the last NASCAR race was today, if I remember correctly as well, unless there's one more. I can't remember if today was the championship or that's next week. But yeah, we've got some basketball in the mix, but we're focused on football. And it's my team playing tonight, Greg. Mm-hmm. Seattle Seahawks.
Yep.
So looking forward to this one. It's going to be fun. Because no Cooper Kupp. So that has made some intriguing options down there with some of the tertiary targets for Seattle, giving us a little bit of salary relief. And Ryan H., the smartest guy in chat. Shout out to Ryan H.
Yeah, Ryan saying Emac is a fine-looking man there. So Emac, you got fans in the chat.
All right. Well, there we go. Nothing like a chubby am I even middle-aged anymore? God, talking sports. So here we go. Here we go. It's got to be the glorious tan because Florida. I've now acclimated to Florida. I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt. It's 76 degrees in our house right now, and I feel a little chilled.
Yeah, that's like my dad lived his entire life in New Jersey, but now because he spends his winters in Florida, he's up here. If it's 72 degrees out, he's like, oh, pretty cold out, pretty chilly. It's like, come on, you've been there for like 2 years now.
Yeah, it is a change. Didn't notice it last year, but this year, even my wife's saying it's like, this is kind of weird. I didn't think it would happen to us, but oh, it has. All right, so injury news and notes, aside from Cooper Kupp being out and a couple defenders for Seattle, nothing too noteworthy. We have Jaden Daniels coming back. He missed, he had his second injury of the season, so he missed last week, mostly out of an abundance of caution, it seems like, for the team, but we'll have to see. Injury reporting has been a little dodgy recently, so we'd like to think he is fully healthy, and he's going against the Seattle team that is pretty good on defense. They don't rack up a lot of the fantasy goodness that we're looking at, but they make other teams really work for it and burn up the clock in their plays. So this will be an interesting strength on strength matchup. And then we've got the Commanders, who are no bueno on defense, a mess in their secondary. This is going to be a fun one here. Do you have a lean on this game? I think is Seattle slightly favored? I haven't looked at the spread today.
So here is the latest from the sports books, and pulling up FanDuel right now, which was down for a portion of the day, which had people all up in arms for the dumbest reason ever on social media. But current line, Seahawks -2.5, -122. Okay. So Seahawks are favored 2.5 and a lot of juice on that. So line not quite moving to the key number of 3, which books don't like to have numbers that close on 3 because that lends to a lot of pushes. So instead, you got Seahawks -2.5, -122. And yeah, FanDuel was down for good like 4 or 5 hours today, which had people very upset that they couldn't cash out their bets. So people were very upset that they could not do negative 50% EV moves and then thought it was some conspiracy by FanDuel to try to save money in some kind of way. Trust me, FanDuel wants everybody cashing out those bets. It is a terrible value proposition. So I found some of that discourse funny online.
What? So it was their sportsbook that was down, or the whole website?
So it was different at different parts of the day, but for all intents and purposes, it was like you could see the lines at one point, but you couldn't bet them or view your current bets.
Gotcha. All right. Well, sorry for FanDuel, but hey, be better. Be better. Let me see here. What else? What other fun do we have? Are we doing any special promotions?
Not at the moment. We did one earlier,
but if you guys,
yeah, if you guys missed it, we did do one earlier because we had a Millie Maker winner last weekend. But like I said, that deal is over. But just for the time period that NFL Live Before Lock was on earlier, we did run 30% off all of our NFL packages to celebrate our second main slate Millie Maker winner of this season. I think we had 5 Millie Maker winners on main slates last season. So we're about on pace this year to last year because we're about halfway through the season plus the playoffs. So finished with 5 last year, 2 so far this season. So if this current pace keeps up, we'll have 5 new Millie Makers at Stokastic, same pace as last year.
Not too shabby, not too shabby. We, of course, still do have the Stokastic Hall of Fame offer. So for you guys out there that have not followed that, I'm going to drop the link there into chat. You will definitely want to download the Stokastic avatar, upload that to your DFS site of choice, finish top 3 in any contest with at least 5,000 people in it. First, second, or third, no 50-way chops for first for Showdown. But do that with the Stokastic avatar. Send that off to Stokastic HOF on Twitter and email support as well, support@stokastic.com, and we will work to get you a free month of single sport sims. Win it a second time, get another month. Win it a third time, get a full month of all access sims. Yeah, we let you win it as many times as you want now. Pretty good deal. Pretty good deal. I hope that's true. I know it used to be just one, but we'll see. Tom will correct me if I am wrong. But win a $20,000 takedown, and you'll get a nice little ring memento commemorating that as well. All right. Let's see. We have, let's go. We'll start with the Seahawks first here. So Sam Darnold, at least until Geno Smith finally got off the schneid earlier today, looked like a great replacement for the Seahawks coming in there for Smith. We have seen Darnold be one of the most efficient quarterbacks this season. Greg, he's averaging 250.6 yards per game, which is 9th overall, yet only 27.4 pass attempts per game, which is 30th. So he's been very, very efficient. He has 3 games of at least 295 passing yards, and he has got some decent touchdowns, 12 with 4 interceptions. So he is Mr. Efficiency. Doesn't do a lot on the ground. This year he's averaging only about 6 yards per game. He's not even running, so any kneel downs are really skewing against him. Last year he had about 14 yards per game. He had that one stretch when he was with Carolina that he had like 2 out of 3 games with 2 rushing touchdowns or something. That was a long time ago. That's not in his toolkit by any stretch. That was just happenstance way back in the day there. So. But he is someone that is worthy of being in the multiplier slot. And then the pass catching core, as we mentioned, no Cooper Kupp. Now, he is mostly a possession receiver at this point, future Hall of Famer, of course. But we have seen Jackson Smith and Jigba be pretty much the best fantasy receiver this season, with Puka Nacua being hurt for a game and a half. So no slight there, but JSN has really stepped up, and he has an absurd target share. Today, he's projecting, I think, for almost 34% target share with Kupp out of action there. And that helps him because he's getting all the targets from a team that doesn't have a lot of volume. So we want to be careful with this. But again, that Commanders secondary is awful, just awful. You shouldn't pay big money to defensive backs that are ready to fall off the shelf. So
have you looked recently at the leading receivers for the NFL this year?
I have not.
There is such a big gap between JSN and everybody else. So he's only up 100 yards on Jamar Chase, but that includes today's game. So he has played one less game than Jamar Chase, and he has a 100-yard lead on him for most receiving yards in the NFL so far. So JSN, let's assume he has another 100-plus yard receiving game in the absence of Cooper Kupp tonight in a pretty good matchup. You could be looking at JSN like a 250-yard gap between him and the second leading receiver in the NFL. And then there's even a big gap between Jamar Chase and other guys. So JSN, he is having a crazy, crazy good season. And one more, we could certainly see him end up with over 2,000 receiving yards. I thought we were never going to see a season quite like what we got out of Cooper Kupp a couple of years ago, but JSN might go ahead and do it.
Yeah. Oh, hey, it looked like Puka was going to do it to start off the year. Yeah. There's no margin for error for something a historic season such as that, but it's still.
So with that said, JSN has only played one more game than Puka Nacua, because you might say like, but Puka's been hurt. Well, JSN's played one more game than him and has more than 200 more yards than Puka Nacua.
Crazy, just crazy. Aside from those guys, how do you want to break down the Seattle passing game? We've got AJ Barner, who's on the field quite a bit. He is decent pass catcher. He's one of their better blockers. Their rookie Elijah Arroyo has only a few less targets than Barner, but he's only on the field really for passing plays. You've got another rookie, Torrey Horton, who has a punt return touchdown. I think he had a 95-yard punt return touchdown. So he's got some dynamic ability here, but we don't really get to see volume for anybody outside of JSN. But with Kupp out of the picture, there'll be a couple extra targets to go around here. What do you like from the secondary and tertiary guys for Seattle?
Sure. So if we go ahead and start looking at some of the other pass catchers from Seattle, and to be clear, you're just talking about the pass catchers for now, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Good catch. I was about to get the bot out of chat there. So you'll see JSN shows up in just a crazy amount of lineups. He's our most rostered player in the flex and our most rostered player in the captain spot. In fact, we only really have much exposure to two players in the captain spot. It's very top heavy, with Jaden Daniels and JSN making up about half of our exposure in that spot. But look at the drop off as far as pass catchers go. Sorry, JSN are our second most rostered player in the flex, most rostered Seahawks player. But if you look at the drop off here, JSN in 49% of lineups. The next most rostered pass catcher that we get to from Seattle is Horton in 23% of lineups, which is actually a little bit underweight to the field. Torrey Horton is somebody who I thought was going over-owned by the field, particularly in some main contests early on in the season. There were these situations where he was making a lot of plays in garbage time, where Seahawks were playing in lopsided games. He ended up playing entire fourth quarters. He appeared to be very talented. The problem with Horton was, as long as Kupp and JSN were on the field, there just wasn't very much of a role for Horton. Here's where things change, though. There's no Cooper Kupp today. You touched on that. So Horton would appear to be the next man up. He has big play upside. Our Sims are viewing him as a little bit over-owned at 31%, but at $3,200, especially if you guys are playing in a cash game for the single game slate, I do think that Horton is the guy who benefits the most on the cheap end of all of the pass catchers from Seattle with Cooper Kupp out. So I do think that Horton is the next man up there, but there's a really big drop-off because of the amount of target volume we're expected to go to JSN, because beyond him, Horton showing up in 23% of lineups. We got AJ Barner in sub 20% of lineups. Then you got Elijah Arroyo showing up in 18% of lineups. So we're getting to a ton of JSN, but if you don't make any adjustments to the Sims, really not that many other pass catchers show up from Seattle, at least relative to their field ownership.
No, and that definitely makes sense. And of course, you said head to head. So, Team Free Money is out there, still got a handful of $1 head to heads in the DK lobby. Keep giving back to the community there. Username Emac, just a buck, but pride is priceless. Let's clean up the Seahawks here. Let's go with their running back. by committee, which has really, really, really been a mess. So I don't, as a Seahawks fan, I'm okay with both these guys, but from a fantasy perspective, God, it's hard to trust either one of them. Now, if you look at Zach Charbonnet, he is not as dynamic as Kenneth Walker III, but he gets to be on the field 50 to 60% of the time. That's about where he's settled in. Walker, when both are healthy, now Charbonnet did miss one game, but when healthy, Walker gets on the field about 45% of the time, not quite 50% of the time. And outside of week 3, when Charbonnet was out, no other running back has stepped between the lines on offense for Seattle. So it's really a two-man show. Surprisingly, neither is particularly active in the passing game because, again, just not a lot of targets going out there for everybody. So these guys get a little bit shortchanged, and there's really no difference between the two of them. And it's been Charbonnet that's been getting touchdowns. So Walker has the 4 best rushing performances, 105, 81, 86, and 66 yards. But it's Charbonnet getting the touchdowns. I believe he has 4 in his last 4 games, something along those lines there. So it's really hard to pick between these guys on DraftKings. There's just like $600 separating them. But on FanDuel, you get Charbonnet with the $2,600 discount. So
I find it so hard to differentiate between Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker because here's what we had been seeing for a lot of the season. It was Zach Charbonnet was getting more touches than Kenneth Walker, but Walker was just so much better than him in terms of just like normal stats, in terms of like rushing yards per attempt and just the yards. It was very clear that Kenneth Walker was outplaying Zach Charbonnet. But what happens, Zach Charbonnet is still getting the bulk of the playing time. Okay, so that happens the entirety of the season. But then last week, Zach Charbonnet actually significantly outplays Kenneth Walker. And we see Kenneth Walker's snap count go up and Charbonnet's go down. So I don't understand the backfield split at all for the Seahawks because you finally get Charbonnet playing better than Kenneth Walker. And Charbonnet plays 51% of the snaps and Walker plays 44%. Nothing ever makes sense with how the backfield is handled here. Like, it's not even a hot hand approach. Kenneth Walker's played better for the entirety of the season, and still we end up seeing Charbonnet get touches over him, and then finally we see what happens last week. I don't get it, Emac. I know it's your team. Do you have a better read on what the hell the situation is for the backfield and how they determine who gets more snaps each week?
No, and none of it makes sense. None of it makes sense, and it feels almost like Pete Carroll is still there with the way they have. They're one of, I think, 3 or 4 teams that have a negative pass rate over expectation. And they're happy to run the ball. They're happy to be efficient, and they have a pretty decent defense here. So it's kind of, we'll see what happens. They do get to go against a weak Commanders defense, and I'm hoping that that makes things a little more intriguing from the DFS side of things here. If we turn our attention to the Commanders, no Terry McLaurin. Now, I said, no real injury issues. He's been out enough that he's kind of not really been a factor much this year. He did come back for one game, tweaked his quad on Monday Night Football, so he's out again. Deebo Samuel's been dealing with the heel issue. Aside from, I don't think they'll have him returning kicks. I think it'll be McCaffrey, and then I think Jalen Lane will continue to return kickoffs for Deebo. But he's getting some nice short yardage love. We've been a little annoyed by Zach Ertz, but he's on pace for more than 8 touchdowns. He had 8 touchdowns last year, or 7 or 8. He's on pace for almost 9 now. He's second most targets on the team, only with 40. But working with 2 different quarterbacks there, it's really kind of a 2-man show, similar to what we've seen with the Seahawks. It's just that it's a health issue that has kept the wide receiver production kind of tamped down for Washington here. Jaden Daniels, I believe his rushing prop was 43.5. I was looking at some pick'em sites there. I kind of like the over, only because the Washington Commanders have a horrible backfield situation here, and we're going to need Daniels to become Superman again, like he was in his rookie season, to help this offense move along here. What is your take on the Washington passing game here? And do you think Daniels is worthy of being a captain or MVP?
So two things. Which part do you want me to answer first? The captain part or the pass?
Let's do the captain part here, because I have JSN just a tick above him on both sides.
Yeah. So the one issue with I know you asked me about Daniels, but the one issue with JSN as a captain option is he's projecting for 35% ownership. So if you're in single entry contests, I kind of think it makes more sense to go to Jaden Daniels, just from a standpoint of JSN is almost 2x the ownership. We've got 55% of the field expected to play one of these two guys in the captain spot. So just because of the ownership discount you're getting, I prefer to go to Jaden Daniels. I know it's been a little bit of a down season for Daniels relative to last year and his expectations coming into this season. I do feel like we've seen this kind of odd thing happen over the course of the last, 4 or 5 seasons, something like that. A lot of rookie quarterbacks, Emac, seem to be outperforming expectations in terms of they just come into the league and they're immediately ready to go. And then a lot of them seem to regress in their second and third years. Like, they're so good their first season that there's just this expectation they're going to be an MVP candidate going forward. Like Jaden Daniels, I think, had the 3rd or 4th best MVP odds coming into this season. I think it was 3rd, if I'm remembering correctly, behind Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Last year, the same thing happened with CJ Stroud. And then he just kind of ended up being an okay-ish quarterback in subsequent seasons, or the opposite happens. Caleb Williams, because he was not a star right away in his rookie season, everybody goes, well, he must be a bust then. And now you look at where the Bears are now and how well Caleb Williams is playing. But for the purpose of the captain spot today, Emac, Jaden Daniels has all of the aspects that I like to look in for a quarterback that I might want to play in the multiplier spot, which is just, do they have rushing upside or not? And I did have some concerns with Daniels coming back from the knee injury, wearing the bulky brace. How would his rushing upside look? Well, the last couple of games, 8 carries last week, scored a touchdown, 10 carries the week before. So it still seems like we're getting 8, 9, 10 carries per game. And by the way, also 8 carries the game before that. So we've now had 3 games with him back from injury, 8 carries, 10 carries, 8 carries. So I don't really have any of those concerns about what his rushing upside is. So to me, Jaden Daniels really fits the mold of a quarterback I want to play in the multiplier spot. And for smaller field tournaments, I do think he's a better option to go to than JSN just because of the ownership gap. You see that in our tools as well. Jaden Daniels in 26% of lineups in the captain spot, 23% for JSN. So while it is just a narrow gap between them, keep in mind how much more popular JSN is as well.
All right. One thing I'm going to throw, I didn't realize he was active. Ricky White, the 3rd. I saw somebody mentioning him in chat. He was the last round draft pick for Seattle. I forget if the draft 7 or 8 rounds now, but he was the last round pick. He played at UNLV, had a pretty good junior year, if I remember correctly, but I don't know that he's actually had offensive snaps today. I did not look that up. So let me chase that down real quick. But back to the Commanders there. How are you feeling about Samuel, Ertz, and then the poo-poo platter?
Yeah. So I've played a fairly decent amount of Debo this year, and he's never really been all that popular. And that's kind of the same situation again for today, relative to a showdown slate, at least today, where he's only 30% owned in the flex spot, and then he's 7% owned in the captain spot. And you guys can see the Sims get us overweight to him in both of those spots. So Debo Samuel is somebody who, when you have no Terry McLaurin on the field for the Commanders, they just don't really have that many guys to throw the football to. And there's been a good amount of volume going to Debo Samuel in the passing game because he doesn't get used in the running game as much by the Commanders as he did by the 49ers. So as a result, you get increased targets. Over the last few games, 6 targets, 5 targets, 11 targets. He's had multiple games this year with 10 plus targets. That almost never happened when he was on the 49ers, because what you would get is a lot of games with him in San Francisco where he would get the touches, but it would be like 3-4 targets and then like 4 or 5 rushing attempts. Now almost all of his work comes in the passing game with the Commanders, and he only carries the ball maybe once per game. When they had some running back injuries earlier in the year, he had a couple of more rushing attempts, but over the last 3 games, 0-1-1 as far as rushing attempts. I like to see that from him from a fantasy standpoint because he's still going to get his attempts. We would just rather they come with the potential of a PPR point than just the rushing attempt. So Debo Samuel does really benefit from the absence of McLaurin, and it helps from a tournament standpoint that he's not all that popular, 30% owned.
All right. I have to go back and talk about the Seahawks passing game because I did not realize that Jake Bobo was also inactive today. So he is the guy that I thought was going to kind of resurface. That he's been with the team for a couple of years. They've liked him in the preseason, etc. But Derek Young is inactive. He had been active for I can't remember if he played in the opener, but I know he played in all the other games. And Bobo are both inactive in addition to Cup. So that is where Ricky White III is coming in for his first action of the season. I don't know if he was played any special teams. It doesn't look like it, but he has not had any offensive snaps thus far. So bit of a surprise there. I really thought they like Bobo for his hands. He's not fast. He's miscast as an NFL player almost, but the team had kept him around. I thought he was going to be like a sneaky guy today. Nope, too sneaky, not active.
Yeah.
Oy.
Yeah. Funny, somebody in the chat said, Stephen Leibowitz said we're all Bobos in the chat. They've got a lot of tight ends.
The Seahawks, yeah. Who's their third tight end? It is Royal Bradley Russell, Robbie Otts. No, Eric Saubert. He's their blocking guy. Mm-hmm. So and then we'll talk to the tertiary guys for Washington here. So Arroyo is in on passing downs more often than not. AJ Barner's the main guy. He's getting up around 80% of the snaps. Saubert comes in when they need to do short yardage stuff and blocking. And then if it's an obvious block, if it's not a passing down and Barner's out, it's Saubert who's in. So he just doesn't get very many targets. So McCaffrey, a little expensive on both sides compared to his counterparts, rookie Jalen Noel and veteran Chris Moore. That makes things pretty interesting there on DraftKings. McCaffrey, didn't do quite what everybody was hoping we would see from him his rookie year. It was mostly kind of a lost season. This year he's been really good on kickoff returns, and he's also been adequate out of the slot. But he's almost double the price of Moore and Noel, so it makes it less interesting at this point. And then similar to Horton. Where's my notes here? I think Noel. Sorry, I said Noel. Jalen Lane. I transposed too many Jalens. Too many Jalen Rose.
I got you. I got you. Two young slot receivers. I understand.
Yeah. So Lane also has a 90-yard punt return. So he is the full-time punt returner there. So he is a really dynamic guy. I would lean towards those guys with no hesitation if I needed salary savings over McCaffrey. How do you want to parse that out?
Yeah, so the problem with McCaffrey, and I think he's really talented, and we've seen a handful of big plays out of McCaffrey, which you alluded to, both in the punt return as well as long plays over the middle when Terry McLaurin's been out. He's got 11 catches for 203 yards on the season, and it's not like we're seeing these massive volume or 100-yard receiving games, but he just makes big plays. He has a 43-yard receiving touchdown this year. He's a 33-yard receiving touchdown. So overall for the season, he's only got 11 catches on 15 targets. It's just whenever he does catch the football, it's usually like a 20-plus yard game that you're getting to McCaffrey. The problem is he's priced all the way up to $5,400 now. It would be totally different if I'm only going off memory here, but I think on all the other showdowns that McCaffrey's been involved in, he's been like 3,200 or 2,800 or something like that. It's a really tough click at $5,400 because of the lack of volume. You're so dependent on him breaking one of those big plays. And Emac, even if he does break one of those big plays, is it going to be enough? Like you look at 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago against the Bears, he has one catch for 33 yards and a touchdown. He had the game against the Falcons where he had 2 catches for 21 yards and a touchdown. At this kind of price point, that one catch he has for big yards, like you're not going to hate getting 9 or 10 fantasy points out of him at $5,400, but that's kind of been what his ceiling is. And I just don't know if that's enough in a game that should be fairly high scoring. And then he's also priced all the way up to $5,400. So I don't really like the price tag on Luke McCaffrey all that much. And I'm trying to remember who else did you ask me about there?
Jalen Lane and Chris Moore.
Got you. Yeah, so if I'm going to go to one of those guys, I'm probably most inclined to Chris Moore just because of the combination of price point as well as what the role could be. So if you guys remember the last game or the last couple of games we saw without Terry McLaurin, 5 targets for Chris Moore against the Cowboys, 5 targets for Chris Moore against the Bears as well. I think his workload is a little bit more secure, and he's cheaper than both of those guys.
Yeah, 0 last game, though.
Yeah.
So.
But McLaurin also played that game.
Correct. Running backs here. Oof. Maybe the Commanders wish they hadn't traded Brian Robinson Jr. At the end of training camp there. They lost Austin Eckler to an Achilles injury. It could be done for his career, actually. At this point, he was lost in week 2. We've seen their rookie Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, prefers to go by Bill. So we've seen Bill turn into a decimal back. So he had a long 5 years, 6 years in college, never was really active in the passing game. I think he had about 50 targets throughout his college career. I didn't look it up, but I wrote him up at the beginning of the season, so I know it was something like that. Has just 11 targets this year. So the decimal back, that's a term that was coined by Ben Rossa and the Stokastic chat. Basically, it means take the yardage that the running back gets, move the decimal over 1, and that's his fantasy points unless he gets in the end zone. So he has been less than appealing here. You have Jeremy McNichols, who has been playing a lot in the passing situations. But he's not getting any carries. He's runner. A little bit of game script has kept him out of it. Plus, having a backup running quarterback and a running quarterback, they don't need him to do as much. But he's only had, I think, 5 or 6 carries over the last 3 games. So that's in total. I believe he did rip off like a 60-yarder or something earlier this season, but he has not gotten much volume, and he's not gotten a lot in the passing volume either. So neither one of these guys is a particularly comfortable click here, even though they basically have the role on lockdown because Chris Rodriguez continues to be phased out. The running back is just a messy situation there. So I just don't in good conscience feel good about spending on Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I'd rather roll the dice. I'd rather even go with McCaffrey for comparative purposes, especially on DraftKings in the full PPR, than pay the full salary there for Bill.
There's so many situations in this game where it's hard to know what the workload looks like. The Commanders' secondary pass catchers, all of the Commanders' running backs, the Seahawks' running backs. Because if you look at what we've gotten out of the Commanders' backfield, like I tend to think it is going to be Krosky-Merritt that more often than not is the go-to guy. But at the same time, too, he's had some fumble issues at times this year, and then he just loses his role entirely in some of those games. And then if you remember also earlier in the season, it looked like Krosky-Merritt had taken a firm hold of the backfield. And then all of a sudden it was Chris Rodriguez who played more than him the week after that when Rodriguez earlier on the season was a healthy DNP. So another situation where it's really hard to know who the guy is going to be in the Commanders' backfield. I think it's most likely to be Krosky-Merritt, but the issue with that is he is $7,400. So I actually do like trying to get a little bit different in the Commanders' backfield here, Emac. I think there are other ways that you could get a little bit unique and maybe go down the depth chart for the Commanders. I'm just looking to see who it is that's showing up in lineups for us here. Just from a standpoint of the Commanders, it's so hard to project, and it's so all over the place on a week-to-week basis that you get let's see, is McNichols? Yeah, okay. So we got McNichols at $4,400, showing up in 10% of lineups at 9% ownership. And we've got Rodriguez barely showing up in anything at $2,800. I'm more inclined to take shots on McNichols than Rodriguez just because McNichols actually plays a role in the passing game. But I also think McNichols is kind of dynamic. He's averaging 8.9 yards per rush attempt this year, Emac. He's also averaging 10.8 yards per reception. He's pretty explosive. And I do think there's a scenario where if the Commanders are trailing, he's playing more. And we've seen him do some real damage in the passing game. Just last week, 5 catches for 64 yards. If I'm the Commanders, I saw what McNichols did last week and some of the weeks prior to that. I mean, like 8.9 yards per carry, 10.8 yards per reception. At a certain point, don't you just say like, hey, maybe we give this guy a couple of extra touches per game just to see what happens. So I think at sub 10% ownership, McNichols is a really interesting contrarian GPP play.
Yeah, I definitely concur on that one with you. Quickly hitting, we got 15 minutes to go here. Quickly hitting on kickers and special teams. Seahawks have Myers, who's been their longtime kicker. He played for a few different franchises, but he's been with Seattle for 6 or 7 years. He's got a couple Pro Bowls under his belt. He was 9 of 12 from beyond 50 last yard. This year, he is just 4 of 6. So one more make and he'd be looking stellar. But the fact that he's already gotten 6 50-yard field goals and 12 last year, the team does like him and trust him. And remember, he kicks outdoors for most of his games because Seattle is an outdoor stadium. If we look at the Seattle defense, as I mentioned, they're only averaging about a turnover or a takeaway per game, which isn't particularly great. They are 7th with 23 sacks, which is solid, but barely above the middle of the pack and well below the really elite teams that are closer to 30. But they're just a really good all-around defense. They've got they play a well-schemed defensive game here, so they make it really tough on opposing offenses. If we look to the Commanders, their defense is not great. Darnold's only been sacked 9 times this year. He has just 4 interceptions because, again, he attempts 20.7 passes per game. 27.4 passes per game. You've got Matt Gay. This is his first year with Washington. Struggled a little bit in the beginning of the season. Has come around somewhat. Did not attempt any field goals in the last game. He's perfect. 18 of 18 on his extra points. But remember, he spent the last 5 years in domes kicking for the Rams and Indianapolis. So he is, now getting to experience outdoor life. Solid veteran kicker. Field goals are fickle. We see horrible field goal kickers sometimes get 5 in showdown games, and great ones never take a shot. But that is, that is kind of the take here. And then I don't want any part of the Commanders' defense. They don't have enough playmakers.
Yeah. So as far as the defenses go, they do typically show up a little bit overweight in the sims. Let's see. What do we have for this game, though? Where are they? Here we go. Seahawks showing up. Yeah, getting some exposure, nothing crazy. Seahawks 19% of lineups, Commanders 19% of lineups. So it's not the crazy numbers we usually see. Just the defenses are cheap enough to where it generally makes sense to have some exposure to them, but they're not showing up as priorities in the sims for this game when they pretty frequently do for showdown slates.
Yeah, and I think that's appropriate. I mean, defenses they're almost as chaotic as field goal attempts. Who was it today? Tennessee, two special teams and return touchdowns. How'd that happen? So who knows?
No, one of them was an interception. I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, one was a kick return and one was an interception.
Yeah. I think it was the Chargers' first possession of the game. Herbert got picked off, got returned for a touchdown. And then it might have even been the second possession of the game. They stopped the charge, or maybe it was the third. They punted, returned for a touchdown. It's like, oh, cool. We've got a 1% on defense at min price that is 2 touchdowns. I thought for sure they were going to break the slate. To an extent, they kind of did. Just so few people in the field played them that it didn't really end up mattering. But yeah, it did. If they were like 6% owned, that would have been massively disruptive to the slate.
Yeah. It was just more really? They're going to have a good performance today. So. Oh, all righty. As you are running out, I'm assuming you have the sims up there on the screen. Yep. There's been a couple calls to show some of the top sim lineups.
Absolutely. Yeah, we could go ahead and look at the top sim lineups. We could also look at some of the most duplicated lineups, Emac. So if we do look at the lineups towards the top, which usually the ones with the highest sim ROI could be kind of goofy looking lineups just because they're projected to be so unique that they're so much different than what the rest of the field is doing. And for Showdown, that often is pretty valuable, just being different than the field. So actually the top sim ROI lineup has the Commanders in the MVP, or the captain spot, I should say, with AJ Barner, Deebo Samuel, JSN, Jaden Daniels, and Kenneth Walker. So that is a quite contrarian lineup. Some of the next lineups here, though, are pretty normal looking. JSN, AJ Barner, Commanders defense, Bill Krosky Merritt, Jaden Daniels, Luke McCaffrey. Then the third lineup here, Kenneth Walker, Cody White, Deebo Samuel, JSN, Jaden Daniels, Seahawks defense. And one thing you also notice with a lot of these top lineups is they're usually leaving or at least for today, most of them are leaving somewhere around $1,000 in salary on the table.
Is Cody White and Ricky White the same person? No, they are not.
And they're also not the same as Kobe White from the Chicago Bulls. All different people.
Except he's hurt, not playing tonight. Just nor is Io DeSumo. I think their game just tipped off. So, who are you terrified of not getting in your lineups tonight? Who is going to make the little Greg Ehrenberg break down in tears? Your inner child.
Let's see. Let me just sort here by negatively leveraged players, captain, as well as the flex. I mean, I guess technically we're underweight to the field to JSN in the captain spot, but so much he's in so many lineups, so it's just because how popular it is. So, you know, you got 25% of a guy in the captain spot. It's not the biggest deal in the world. Let's see. Probably like Luke McCaffrey returning a punt for a touchdown or something like that, because he doesn't show up in very many lineups at $5,400. Maybe something like McCaffrey because he's got some big play upside. Who else? Elijah Arroyo is another one. He doesn't show up in very many lineups at 25% ownership. He's somebody who doesn't get a ton of targets, but almost all of his targets do come around the red zone. So actually, let me look at his targets for the year. So overall targets for Arroyo, he has... All right, so Arroyo for the season, Emac, has 17 targets. And of those 17 targets, a third of them have come in the red zone. So that's something that's definitely a little bit scary is will you get the cheap tight end touchdown that seems to happen on almost every single showdown slate with Arroyo not showing up in very many lineups. That's a possibility. There's nobody that we're really crazy underweight to the field to. Sam Darnold also comes in underweight to the field. He's very popular and also very expensive for today. So no rushing touchdowns for Sam Darnold. I would say either of those outcomes, either a big game for Elijah Arroyo or Sam Darnold being the highest scoring player on this slate. Both of those would be not great outcomes for me. How about yourself?
Well, no, now I'm stuck on determining if, okay, so Cody White and Ricky White definitely are two different people. Cody White played in the first game. This will be the debut for Ricky White.
He's the same as Ricky Martin, though, right? That's the same person?
You know, we're going to be living the Vida Loca tonight, Greg.
Okay, there we go. I'm trying to think if I know any other Ricky Martin songs to riff
She
on.
bangs! She bangs! Yeah. She bangs! The Cup of Life, the World Cup, the song, come on. How do I know way more about Ricky Martin?
Because when Ricky Martin was prominent, I was like 5 years old.
Moment of silence for Eric Lindquist, who is actually older than me.
That is true. So Loughy might be as well, because Loughy, according to chat, celebrates a birthday 3 times per week. So if we count all of those, that's you know. But yeah, I was 8 when Live in La Vida Loca came out. So a lot of the other songs too, like came out in like the 80s or the 90s. Like I was very
Menudo,
young.
Those don't count. You don't even know what Menudo is. That was BTS before BTS. And no, I have no idea I know who BTS is. I don't know their songs. Shout out to the K-pop crew. They're not quite in my wheelhouse.
I don't believe that for a second. I think Emac's a closet K-pop fan.
Pink Black. Well, Oppa Gangnam Style. Psy. That song is what, 12 years old?
Yeah, that's been a minute. You know what's really cool? Have you ever seen when he performs live? They like shoot him out of springs from underneath the stage. He launches like 8 feet in the air. He
just looks like a fun guy to hang out with. Yeah, I've seen him in some interviews and stuff. He just seems like, okay, the energy on that guy's pretty good.
Most duped lineups, by the way, Mac, a lot of people are asking about this in chat. There are so many dupes for this slate. And that's what will happen when you have 2 players in the captain spot that are pulling a ton of the ownership. Look at how many dupes we have across 50K lineups in here. 2 lineups duped over 200 times. I think I remember the Monday night slate that Loughy and I did together. There was only a couple of lineups that were even expected to be duped over 100 times. Here, JSN, AJ Barner, Chris Moore, Jaden Daniels, Sam Darnold, Troy Horton. That's duped 235 times out of 50,000 lineups. And then I forget off the top of my head. How many lineups are in the main on DraftKings tonight?
I do not know.
Let's see.
200,000 probably.
All right. So yeah, I mean, it's like 2.5x here. So this is the lineup that we're expecting to be duped, like over 500 times in that main contest. And then you got this lineup here: Sam Darnold, AJ Barner, Elijah Arroyo, Jason Myers, JSN, and Jaden Daniels. This one's expected to be duped over 200 times. This lineup, nearly 200 dupes: JSN, Deebo Samuel, Elijah Arroyo, Sam Darnold, Troy Horton, Zach Ertz. Here's what's going to happen tonight, Emac.
No, I think you just read off my cash game.
No, did I really? All right. It's not. That's a very reasonable cash game lineup. But here's what I think is going to happen here, Emac. Somebody's either going to have a bonkers unique lineup that wins solo, or it's going to be like a 600-way tie for first with how duped a bunch of these lineups are.
Yeah, I think that's where we are headed. That is where we are headed. Get rid of that evil bot there. We have 4 minutes left to go. My lineups are uploaded. Are you good to go?
Yeah, man, I'm good. So the other thing too that I would like to discuss here after we went through some of the most dupes is a unique captain. So if you were not playing JSN or Jaden Daniels in the captain spot, who do you like to be unique? Because kind of anybody outside of them, it's a fairly different looking lineup.
I think I would roll the dice on Barner, the tight end for Seattle.
Okay.
Or it would be Kenneth Walker.
All right. So I totally get the upside in Kenneth Walker. Also, Walker only 4% owned, so I think that's pretty sensible. The downside is immense, but who gives a shit for GPPs, right? Like, I think that's a pretty sensible one. Or if your read is that Charbonnet is going to play more than Walker. I saw somebody in the chat say Charbonnet, Charlie Cunningham did. Either going to either of the running backs. It's super risky, but for tournaments, we don't really care all that much. I'm going to go with... I'm going to say Troy Horton for myself at $4,800, just because we've seen that he has an actual ceiling. Who knows what that looks like when he's actually more of a prominent starter role as opposed to just playing against backups and garbage time towards the tail end of the game. But we've seen Troy Horton in garbage time of some of these games. So against the Saints in week 3, game's a blowout. He plays in garbage time in the fourth quarter. He has 3 catches for 32 yards and a touchdown. Against the Steelers in week 2, another game, kind of a blowout. 2 catches for 32 yards and a touchdown in garbage time. I think he's a big play receiver who just is buried behind JSN and Cooper Kupp, so he doesn't really get them any opportunities. But I think he has a ceiling to him at, what is he? 3% owned in the captain spot at $4,800. I like him as a unique captain.
All right, dropping the link in chat here. This is for Tails. You guys can get your free account over at tails.bet. All sorts of free content there. Premium content as well, but you're getting Greg and Ben Rossa and Loughy are putting out some free content there. You have some illustrious people like DFS Donuts, Carl. You also have Lindy. You've got DK DFS. A lot of... Pardon?
Did you just call Mitch Carl?
I did. I was. I'm sorry. Sorry. Well, his name's Mitch Carl. 2 first names. I'm sundowning. It's 9:20 right now, Greg. So.
Okay. Oh, I didn't realize that that at 9:20 that people's names change. Like it's like they're vampire, or like they're werewolves. Everybody knows the full moon comes out and Mitch turns into Carl because he's got 2 first names.
Yes, well, DFS and Donuts. He is a phenomenal, hardworking guy. He's got a bunch of other contributors in his Discord as well, providing picks. Ben's got some extra people helping him out. Lindy's got some people helping him out. So you're getting good information here. Not a high price point, but you can similar to how we give away OddsShopper memberships or Stokastic Sims memberships. You can get Tails memberships as well if you sign up for the various sites. That's all the information I have. We are 1 minute away from lock. I think we are good. Best play on the slate, the guy who scores 2 touchdowns tonight. There's the answer.
I'm gonna say Jaden Daniels, the overall best play on the slate. That's not some kind of crazy contrarian stance, obviously, but I mean he's almost half the projected ownership as JSN in the captain spot.
Ben Sinnott, no, we didn't mention his name. We didn't mention Bates either. Just no love there with Ertz getting 40 of the 46 targets, I think, to Commanders tight ends this season. So there we are.
That was not who I was expecting you to say.
Oh, I was just saying, chat had asked.
I thought that was who you were saying was your favorite overall play on the slate.
Oh, gosh. No.
So who's your answer? Because I gave mine, and then you just said Ben Sinnott.
Oh, I'm a chalk donkey. It's going to be JSN.
Okay.
I think Horton is talented, and I like Barner as well. There's 3 of the guys in my main lineup, which, again, I think was the one you read off there earlier. So I'm an unapologetic Seattle Seahawk fan. And yes, I know I'm wearing this Super Bowl shirt from the year that they should have given Marshawn Beast Mode Lynch the rock to score against the Patriots. Too soon to talk about that. Still, Greg. Still too soon.
All right. With that in mind, there's only one way to close out the show. We are sponsored today by DraftKings Pick 6. If you guys sign up at DraftKings Pick 6 for the first time, your first $5 in Pick 6 sets, that will receive a max $50 issued as a non-withdrawable bonus pick set. If you do have a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Just call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus, valid only where Pick 6 operates. See dkng.co/Pick 6 states. Void in New York and Ontario, and where prohibited. Eligibility restrictions do apply. One per new DraftKings customer. First $5 in first pick sets to receive $50 issued as non-withdrawable bonus picks that expire in 14 days. This offer ends tomorrow, Emac, November 3rd at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Terms and conditions can be found at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. This is sponsored by DraftKings.